My friends, there is a kind of peace that cannot be bought. It does not come from wealth or titles or the applause of others. It is the peace of one who has nothing to hide. The peace of knowing that when the lights are off, when no one is watching, you are still the same person you claim to be. Now, I've met leaders and I've met everyday people who carried that peace. And let me tell you, when you see it, you recognize it. Because it's not just in their words, it's in their eyes, their walk, the way they treat others. That peace comes from honesty, from living a life where you don't have to look over your shoulder. And in our world today, crowded with noise, pressure, and distraction, that peace is revolutionary. Integrity brings freedom when you hide nothing, you fear nothing. At first glance, this may sound like a simple phrase, something that belongs on a poster or a bumper sticker. But when we look deeper, we realize it touches the very foundation of what it means to live a life of peace, a life of authenticity. Integrity is not about perfection. It is not about never making mistakes. It is about choosing honesty even when dishonesty would seem easier, about choosing courage even when fear tempts you toward hiding. The freedom that comes from integrity is unlike any other kind of freedom because it liberates you not from external chains, but from the internal prison of guilt, shame, and secrecy. Think for a moment about what it feels like to hide something important, something that gnaws at you in the quiet hours of the night. The human mind is restless when it knows it is concealing the truth. It replays scenarios, it anticipates exposure, it rehearses excuses. That constant vigilance, that burden of remembering which story was told to whom, is not freedom. It is slavery of the soul. On the other hand, a person who has nothing to hide, a person who stands in integrity, walks lighter, speaks clearer, and rests deeper. They are not worried about someone pulling back the curtain, because there is no curtain to pull back. That is freedom. In our society, we often confuse freedom with indulgence, with the ability to do what we want when we want, without restriction. But true freedom has less to do with what we can get away with and more to do with what we can live with. A life built on secrets may look glamorous for a season, but it corrodes from within. The wealthy executive who manipulates numbers to appear successful, the politician who bends the truth to win votes, the student who cheats to pass an exam, each may appear free in the moment, but they are not free. They live under the shadow of being found out. They live with the gnawing suspicion that their carefully built facade could collapse at any moment. That is not freedom. Integrity, by contrast, gives a man or woman the ability to stand tall in every room. When you speak with integrity, you don't need to remember what you said yesterday. When you act with integrity, you don't need to justify your choices with layers of explanation. Your words and your actions match. And that alignment produces a kind of inner strength that no external power can replicate. Even when circumstances are difficult, even when you are criticized, that strength remains because you are not weighed down by duplicity. Fear is the constant companion of those who hide. Fear of exposure. Fear of judgment, fear of losing what was gained through dishonesty. Fear controls their decisions, shrinking their world into a small, defensive posture. But integrity releases a person from that fear. Imagine walking into a room knowing you owe no one an apology, knowing you have spoken the truth, knowing you have dealt fairly. That kind of confidence is not arrogance. It is quiet assurance, a calm rooted in transparency. You can look others in the eye, not because you are flawless, but because you are real. Children often remind us of this principle in the most innocent ways. A child who has spilled milk and quickly admits it experiences the correction, cleans it up, and moves on. But a child who tries to hide the spill, who blames someone else or covers it with a towel, ends up anxious, waiting to be discovered. We carry this same pattern into adulthood, though in far more complex ways. The lies get bigger, the cover-ups more elaborate, but the burden is the same. The longer we hide, the heavier the fear becomes. Integrity interrupts that cycle. It says, tell the truth even when it costs you. Be honest even when it embarrasses you. Because the cost of dishonesty is always higher in the end. History gives us many examples of leaders who rose and fell on the strength or weakness of their integrity. Some wielded great power, amassed riches, commanded armies, but because they lacked integrity, they lived in paranoia, constantly guarding against betrayal, constantly spinning narratives to protect their image. Their legacies collapsed under the weight of deceit. And yet others, who perhaps never had riches or armies, are remembered centuries later because they lived with integrity. They were free men and women, unshaken by the threat of exposure. Because there was nothing to expose, their freedom inspired others, and that inspiration endures beyond their lifetime. On a personal level, integrity transforms relationships. Trust is the glue that holds human connection together, and trust cannot survive without integrity. When you hide nothing, you create space for trust to grow. Friends can rely on your word, colleagues can depend on your work, loved ones can feel safe in your presence. Without integrity, relationships become shallow, transactional, fragile. With integrity, they deepen because the foundation is solid. You don't need to manipulate to be loved. You don't need to lie to be accepted. You don't need to perform to be valued. You are free to simply be yourself. Integrity also affects the way we see ourselves. Each of us carries an inner judge, a conscience that weighs our actions. When we hide, when we deceive, that conscience is unsettled. We may try to quiet it with distractions, with busyness, with denial, but it does not rest. Only when we align our actions with our values, only when we live in a way that needs no hiding, does the conscience find peace. That peace is the deepest form of freedom, not freedom from laws or from limits, but freedom from the inner turmoil of a divided self. In a world saturated with image, with curated lives and polished surfaces, integrity stands out. It is rare, it is refreshing, and it is powerful. People are drawn to those who are the same in private as they are in public, because such people are trustworthy. They are not actors on a stage, but real individuals whose peace is evident, and that peace becomes contagious. It challenges others to live honestly, to drop the masks, to release the fear. In that way, integrity does not just liberate the individual, it liberates communities, families, and even nations. Integrity brings freedom when you hide nothing, you fear nothing. This is not merely advice for the moral life, but wisdom for the practical life. The energy wasted on secrecy could be invested in creativity. The anxiety spent on covering up could be directed toward building up. The sleepless nights of worry could be replaced with rest. That is the freedom of integrity. It does not promise ease, but it promises peace. And when a person walks in that peace, they are unshakable, because their strength comes not from what they hide, but from what they reveal. Peace is not the absence of struggle, but the presence of truth. When people speak of peace, they often imagine a world without conflict, without difficulty, without pain. They picture calm waters, quiet days, a life untouched by hardship. But that is not real peace. That is only silence, and silence is fragile. The peace that endures, the peace that gives strength, is born not in the absence of struggle, but in the presence of truth. Because truth, even when it is hard, anchors the soul in a way that comfort and ease never can. Every human life encounters struggle. It comes in many forms: the struggle to provide for a family, the struggle to remain faithful to values, the struggle to forgive when hurt has been deep, the struggle to accept disappointment, loss, or failure. These struggles cannot be erased, nor should they be, because they shape us, refine us, and reveal who we really are. Peace does not mean avoiding them, nor pretending they do not exist. Peace means facing them honestly, refusing to hide from reality, and allowing truth to be the ground on which we stand. There are people who spend their entire lives running from truth. Because truth can be uncomfortable. It can expose mistakes, reveal flaws, demand change. It is easier to cover it up with distractions, with false stories, with denial. But that kind of peace, built on illusion, crumbles at the first storm. The absence of struggle is not peace, it is escape. Peace does not fear the storm, because it is rooted in what is real. Even if the struggle remains, truth gives clarity, direction, and dignity within it. Think of the person who suffers loss. If they deny it, suppress it, or pretend it never happened, they may appear composed on the surface. Inside, the turmoil remains unresolved. Yet when they acknowledge the truth of their grief, when they allow themselves to feel the weight of it, peace slowly begins to emerge. The struggle does not vanish, but the honesty of naming it becomes the first step toward healing. This is the pattern of real peace, not the elimination of the struggle, but the embrace of truth within it. Consider also the example of justice. A society may attempt to keep order by silencing dissent, by covering up corruption, by maintaining a surface calm. For a time, this may look like peace. Streets may be quiet, voices subdued, conflict hidden. But beneath that silence, tension grows, resentment festers, lies pile up. This is not peace, it is repression. True peace requires truth, even when that truth exposes uncomfortable realities. It is better to face the struggle openly than to live in a false calm that cannot endure. Societies that tell the truth about their past, about their failures, about their injustices, may struggle, but in that struggle they move toward peace. On the personal level, the same principle holds. Relationships built on avoiding conflict may appear peaceful. Partners may avoid hard conversations, friends may ignore betrayal, families may pretend everything is fine. But without truth, those relationships are fragile, hollow, and bound to fracture. The real peace comes when people tell the truth, even if it leads to struggle, even if it causes tears, even if it shakes the relationship, because only in the presence of truth can real trust grow, and only with trust can there be lasting peace. Peace is not passive. It is not a gift that falls from the sky. It is active, requiring courage to speak truth, to hear truth, to accept truth. Struggle is not the enemy of peace. Dishonesty is. A person can live through hardship with peace if they know they are grounded in what is true. But even the most comfortable life cannot feel peace if it is built on lies. That is why truth is the key, because it gives us something unshakable in the midst of struggle. There is a certain paradox here that many people resist. Struggle itself can deepen peace when truth is present. A person who has walked through hardship honestly, who has confronted pain instead of fleeing it, emerges with a peace that is unshakable. Their peace is not shallow, not dependent on circumstances, but rooted in truth. Others sense it. They see it in the way that person carries themselves, in the calmness of their responses, in the steadiness of their spirit. This peace does not deny the storm, but testifies that truth can hold you steady through it. Truth also brings peace because it resolves the inner conflict we feel when we live divided lives. When there is one version of ourselves for the public and another hidden in private, when our words say one thing but our actions reveal another, there is no peace. There is only constant tension, constant self-monitoring, constant fear of being discovered. The struggle intensifies because it is internal, unspoken, relentless. Yet when we choose truth, when we align who we are on the inside with who we appear to be on the outside, peace begins to grow. The struggle may still be present, we still face challenges, we still face judgment, we still face the demands of life, but it is no longer compounded by deceit. Peace that comes from truth also allows us to extend grace to others. When we know the truth about our own imperfections, we stop demanding perfection from those around us. We no longer expect others to create a false calm by hiding their struggles, because we understand that real peace comes through honesty. This kind of peace makes communities stronger. It creates space where people can be real, where they can admit mistakes without fear of rejection, where they can bring struggles into light without shame. In such communities, peace flourishes, not because struggle disappears, but because truth is embraced. It is important to understand that this kind of peace is not fragile. It is not easily shaken, because it does not depend on everything going smoothly. It does not collapse when hardship arrives. It does not disappear when conflict arises. Instead, it stands firm, because it is rooted in something deeper than circumstance. Truth does not change with the weather, and so the peace built on truth does not vanish when the storm comes. This is why peace is not the absence of struggle, but the presence of truth. The absence of struggle is temporary and deceptive. The presence of truth is eternal and sustaining. The world around us will always present challenges. Families will argue, communities will face divisions, nations will wrestle with injustice. To seek peace without truth is to seek illusion. But to invite truth into every situation, even when it creates struggle, is to lay the foundation for lasting peace. Because truth, though it may bring conflict in the short term, always opens the way for healing, for trust, and for freedom. Peace does not mean life will be easy. It means life will be honest, and in that honesty the human spirit finds rest. A transparent life inspires trust, and trust builds lasting strength. In a world where appearances are carefully managed and images are constantly curated, transparency can feel risky. To be transparent is to allow others to see beyond the surface, to reveal not only our strengths, but also our weaknesses, not only our victories, but also our struggles. And yet, it is exactly this openness that inspires trust, because people know instinctively when they are seeing the truth. Trust does not grow from perfection, it grows from authenticity, from the courage to live without disguise, from the willingness to let others see what is real. Trust is the invisible thread that binds relationships, organizations, and communities together. Without it, everything begins to unravel. No team can function, no family can thrive, no society can endure without trust, and the only way to build trust is through consistency, honesty, and transparency. Words alone are not enough, promises alone are not enough. People look at actions, at character, at whether someone lives the same in private as they do in public. When those layers align, trust is born, and when trust is present, it creates strength that no amount of force or coercion can replicate. Strength built on fear or manipulation is temporary. It can hold for a while, but eventually people resist. They grow weary of facades. They begin to see the cracks, they recognize when something is hidden. But strength built on trust is lasting. It does not need constant defense, because it does not live in fear of collapse. Transparency creates a solid foundation, because people know what they are standing on. They know what to expect, and they know what is true. Consider leadership. A leader who hides behind secrecy, who manipulates information, who projects an image that does not match reality, may command obedience for a time, but they will never command loyalty. Followers may comply, but their compliance will weaken at the first sign of pressure. On the other hand, a leader who lives transparently, who admits mistakes, who shares the truth even when it is hard, will inspire trust. That trust becomes strength because people will stand with them, not out of fear, but out of respect. The bond between leader and follower becomes resilient, able to withstand challenges, because it is anchored in authenticity. Transparency is not about oversharing or exposing every detail of life. It is about alignment between what is seen and what is true. It is about removing the mask of pretense and choosing honesty over appearance. People can sense when they are being deceived, even subtly, and deception always erodes trust. But people can also sense when someone is being genuine, and that genuineness, even if it reveals imperfection, creates connection. A person who pretends to be flawless will eventually be distrusted, but a person who admits their flaws while striving to live with integrity will be trusted. This principle extends beyond individual relationships into the larger fabric of society. Institutions, governments, businesses all rise or fall on trust. When leaders and systems operate transparently, people may not always agree with every decision, but they are more likely to trust the process. When things are hidden, when secrecy dominates, suspicion grows, and suspicion weakens collective strength. Nations become divided, organizations lose their way, communities fracture. Transparency does not remove conflict, but it ensures that conflict is navigated with honesty, which in turn sustains trust. Trust also builds lasting strength within the self. A person who lives transparently does not waste energy maintaining a facade. They do not spend hours rehearsing what to say, worrying about what was hidden, calculating which truth to withhold. Instead, their energy can be directed outward, toward building, creating, connecting. They walk through life unburdened, and that freedom produces strength. Transparency simplifies life, and simplicity is powerful. It removes the weight of duplicity and replaces it with the strength of clarity. A transparent life also invites accountability. When people see who you are, they can support you, challenge you, encourage you, and walk with you. Secrecy isolates, but transparency builds connection, and connection strengthens. No one is meant to carry life alone, and trust creates the bonds that make resilience possible. In times of struggle, it is trust that allows us to lean on others, to ask for help, to share the burden. Without transparency, trust cannot form, and without trust, we stand isolated, fragile. vulnerable, but with it, we stand together, stronger than we could ever be apart. There is also a profound courage in transparency. To reveal the truth of who you are, to live without hiding, is not easy. It requires vulnerability, and vulnerability always carries risk. But it is that very risk that inspires others. People are not inspired by perfection, they are inspired by courage. When someone is willing to show their humanity, to speak openly, to acknowledge imperfection, others feel safe to do the same. This cycle builds trust, and trust multiplies strength. A transparent life does not just strengthen the individual, it strengthens everyone around them because it gives permission for honesty, for authenticity, for connection. Think about the people in your own life whom you trust the most. Chances are they are not the ones who appeared flawless or untouchable. They are the ones who were honest with you, who admitted when they were wrong, who shared their struggles openly, who let you see their real selves. That transparency inspired your trust, and that trust deepened the relationship. The strength of that bond rests not on perfection, but on authenticity. And it is that kind of strength that endures across time, across hardship, across distance. In the same way, when we live transparently, we leave behind a legacy that speaks longer than our words. People may forget the polished image we tried to project, but they will remember whether or not they could trust us. They will remember if we lived in such a way that they never had to second guess our motives, if we were consistent in truth, if we allowed them to see the reality of who we were. That memory builds lasting strength because it shapes how others live, how they carry the value of trust in their own relationships, their own communities, their own futures. A transparent life inspires trust, and trust builds lasting strength. It is one of the simplest truths, yet one of the hardest to live. Because to live transparently requires humility, courage, and consistency. But the reward is immeasurable. It creates bonds that cannot be broken by fear. It creates character that cannot be shaken by lies. It creates strength that cannot be undone by struggle. Strength that endures does not come from force, or wealth, or control. It comes from trust, and trust is born when life is lived in the open, without pretense, without disguise, without hiding. Honesty may cost you in the short term, but it pays you peace for a lifetime. At first, this sounds like a paradox, because in a world that often rewards quick wins and clever shortcuts, honesty can feel like a liability. It can cost you opportunities, friendships, promotions, or even comfort. People may misunderstand you, reject you, or even take advantage of you when you choose to tell the truth. And yet, time and again, history and human experience have proven that what honesty gives in return is far greater than anything it may take away. Honesty gives you peace, not just for a moment, but for a lifetime, because it frees you from the weight of lies and the fear of exposure. The short-term cost of honesty is real. Think about the student who admits to failing an exam instead of cheating to pass, the employee who refuses to manipulate numbers to protect a boss, the friend who tells a painful truth rather than maintaining a comfortable lie. Each of these choices may lead to immediate discomfort, disappointment, or even loss, but each also creates a foundation of peace. The student may face a difficult grade, but their integrity remains intact, and they are free from the anxiety of being caught. The employee may face backlash, but their conscience remains clear, and their reputation stands firm. The friend may risk tension in the relationship, but they offer a gift that can ultimately strengthen trust rather than weaken it. Lies, on the other hand, may buy temporary ease, but they always come with hidden interest, a debt that grows over time. A single lie requires another to cover it, and then another, until life becomes a tangle of stories to remember and roles to maintain. The relief a lie provides in the short term is always overshadowed by the long-term burden of carrying it. Honesty reverses this equation. It may feel heavy in the moment, but once spoken, once chosen, it lightens the future. It clears the path of worry and erases the fear of exposure. The cost is upfront, but the return is lifelong. Peace is one of the deepest human desires. We chase it in different ways, through success, through wealth, through relationships, through control, but none of these can deliver peace if honesty is absent. Peace cannot coexist with pretense. A dishonest life may look calm from The outside, but inside, there is constant unease, constant vigilance, constant fear of being found out. Even when the world applauds, the heart knows the truth, and the heart cannot rest when it knows it is living a lie. Only honesty quiets that inner conflict. Only honesty allows a person to lay their head down at night without rehearsing excuses, without replaying stories, without building defenses. That quiet rest, that freedom from internal division, is worth more than any temporary gain dishonesty could provide. There are countless stories of individuals who lost much in the short term because they chose honesty, yet gained immeasurable peace in the long run. Whistleblowers who risked careers, reformers who risked reputation, friends who risked rejection all carried a cost, but they also carried the peace of knowing they had spoken truth, of knowing they had acted with integrity. Contrast this with those who gained everything in the moment through dishonesty, but lived with constant dread that the truth would surface. Their wealth, power, or success could not quiet the voice of conscience. That is the difference between temporary advantage and lasting peace. Honesty is also a teacher of courage. To tell the truth when it hurts, when it costs, when it isolates, requires bravery. But with each honest act, the soul grows stronger. Peace is not just the absence of conflict, but the presence of inner strength. And honesty is the forge where that strength is built. The more we practice honesty, the more resilient we become, because we no longer depend on lies to shield us from difficulty. We face reality as it is, and in doing so, we find that we are stronger than we believed. Relationships thrive or collapse on this principle. A relationship built on dishonesty may feel smooth at first, but it is fragile. Trust, once broken, is difficult to rebuild. A single hidden truth, once uncovered, can unravel years of closeness. But when honesty is chosen consistently, even at a cost, it builds a foundation that nothing can shake. Friends may disagree. Couples may argue, families may struggle, but if honesty is present, peace is possible. That peace does not mean the absence of conflict. It means the confidence that the conflict is real, that it is not being masked by lies, that resolution can be found because truth is the ground beneath both people. Honesty also strengthens communities. When leaders are transparent, when institutions speak truth, when societies confront reality rather than hiding it, peace grows. It may not be immediate. It may require painful reckonings. It may reveal wounds long ignored, but it creates the possibility of healing. Dishonesty at the communal level may provide a short-lived appearance of harmony, but beneath the surface, division and mistrust fester. Lasting peace requires truth, no matter how costly, because only truth creates the trust that binds people together. For the individual, honesty brings a unique kind of freedom. A dishonest person must always look over their shoulder, must always guard their words, must always anticipate exposure. But the honest person walks forward without fear. They may stumble, they may face opposition, they may lose opportunities, but they are not enslaved by secrecy. Their strength comes from alignment. Their words, their actions, their character are unified. That unity brings peace because it removes the exhausting task of living a double life. Honesty may not always be rewarded in the short run, but it is always respected in the long run. People may be angered by the truth, but they will remember the courage it took to speak it. They may walk away in the moment, but they will trust the one who chose honesty over comfort. That trust is the seed of peace, because it creates bonds that endure beyond convenience, bonds that stand firm when tested. In time, those bonds create strength, not only for the individual, but for families, friendships, organizations, and entire communities. When we choose honesty, we are choosing to invest in peace. We are choosing to plant seeds that may not bloom immediately, but will bear fruit for a lifetime. The short-term cost is real. It may sting, it may wound, it may even strip us of something we valued. But what we receive in return is far greater. We receive the peace of knowing we have nothing to hide, nothing to fear, nothing to defend. We receive the strength of conscience that rests, the clarity of a life that is transparent, the trust of relationships that are authentic. That peace does not fade with time. It grows deeper, richer, and more unshakable with every choice of honesty we make.